Well, let me see if I can open the chat. Wow. Yep, there it is. Perfect. So today, I'll be giving you guys a workshop on air engineering with Snapchat Lens Studio. My name's Alex Doudnikov. I'm an official lens creator with Snapchat, which basically just means I've been doing this and making these for so long that Snapchat has recognized me, and I love doing it. So first things we'll be covering, what's Lens Studio, and a little bit of what's Snapchat, how does it work, and then we're going to go through 3 pretty simple templates to get you started on creating in Lens Studio. Lens Studio is a program to create augmented reality experiences within the Snapchat camera suite. And essentially what that means is it simplifies creating augmented reality by just using the Snapchat platform. Over 200 million Snapchat users use AR every day, and over 1.5 million lenses have been created by the Lens Studio community. All of these AR experiences are just called lenses. And lenses are basically anything that you use on the carousel. So whenever you are using Snapchat, if you're familiar with it, whenever you tap it and you have those face filters or like the dancing hot dog, those are all called lenses. So the basic operation flow to using Lens Studio is to create your assets. You can be almost any kind of artist. You can be doing 2D with like Photoshop, 3D with Blender or Maya. You can be doing 2D and 3D animation. It's like Premiere or the other video editing software I can't remember right now, motion design, and basically anything that is an art. Well, it's not limited to art, but a lot of it is art. You combine the assets that you create with scripting and programming, and some of the really talented Lens Studio projects don't even use any assets. They'll just use programming and what's built into Lens Studio to create an amazing experience. So you combine your assets, you combine your programming, and you get AR. So here's 2 examples that I picked that are like my favorites. The one on the left is called Scan Bingo. It's created by Models by Mike, and it uses machine learning. Model Mike trained himself, where you select what's on screen. So he selects scissors and then the mug and then the scissors. So he gets that. Next, he scans the scissors, and it's using a machine learning model to object recognize the mug and the scissors in his lens. And the one on the right is more of an artistic piece. It's called Stop Flower by Spinning Rock Studios, where it uses a marker like we'll create today later to find a stop sign and trigger this experience where it folds out the stop sign and then this bee comes in and lands on it. And that's just like art. The ones on the left is like major programming. The one on the right is just a lot of art and asset creation. Oh, what's up, Jonah? That's another official lens creator right there. If you guys have any questions at all, you need me to slow down, please let me know in the chat. I have it open and ready to read. So now we're going to start getting into creating our template. If you're not already using Trackit, it'll be easier to follow along, but I'll be explaining every step of the way. So once UACM guys are ready with Trackit, I'll move on to the first project. But we're going to wait here for a minute or 2 just for you guys to get Lens Studio ready.
Yep, let me send the link for Trackit in the chat as well.
I'll send the link again for Lens Studio. So sorry to hear that, Robert, but all of this will be in a very easy to digest, kind of read me, follow the steps along. So you can watch me create it and ask any questions you have while I do it. and then follow along on your own. Love to hear it, Jonah. And yeah, having Snapchat on your device is totally optional. You do not need Snapchat to be able to use Lens Studio. But to publish your experiences that you create, you do need an account with Snapchat.
So I put the link for Track It and the code as well in the chat. So if you open that, if you don't have an account, you can make one real quick, and then you type in that code and you'll be able to follow along. All the text for the workshop will be on there. So if you ever lose track, you can use that to catch up.
Rashmi, is the Track It going to be available afterwards too?
Yep. As long as you can even use that code after the workshop, but you'll always have access to the workshop on Track It.
Cool. Does the lens you make need to be approved first before you can use it on your phone? Yes and no. In the later projects that we'll do, we're going to be sending our lens to just our Snapchat on our phone to preview it. But to be able to share it to others, you do need to submit it online. And that process is pretty quick. It's automated. So once it's approved through the online process, then you'll get a sharing link and anybody will be able to use it.
Okay, I sent the Track It link one more time in the chat. I guess we can wait a minute before we get started. But I guess if you guys aren't familiar with Track It, basically it helps you see all the content for the workshop and follow along. And then once you complete the step that we're currently on, if you click the completed button, we will know that it's been completed. So it kind of helps us know when we should move on to the next step when everyone is kind of caught up. So it's definitely recommended to open that and follow along with us on there. And you can definitely keep it just open in the background and open Zoom if you don't have Dual Monitor or something like that. Joe, we can go ahead and get started.
Is anybody doing the Track It? Like, when will the next button appear?
Okay, let me ask.
There it is. Cool. So project, whoa, should have actually spent that time going over this. Completely forgot. This is the default view of a Lens Studio project. It's pretty simple once you figure out what's what. So the first box on the top left in orange is the objects box. That is all of your components inside of the lens. And those objects go pretty much hand in hand with the resources box on the bottom left in the green. So any object will almost every time be using a resource, and resources don't have to be in the project. It's kind of just like a staging area for all of your assets and resources. And we're going to skip the blue one in the middle for now. The one on the far right is the inspector panel. And whenever you click on any object in the objects panel, in this example, the camera object is selected, it lets you change the properties in that object. And in the inspector, you edit the properties and you add more components to the objects. So an object isn't strictly just whatever you create it as. You can add other components to that object to change it up or add some more functionality to it. And the big blue box in the middle is the scene. The scene is like a 3D space for moving your objects around in and placing your objects where you want them to, because this is all AR. This is all 3-dimensional. But whenever you're working with a 2-dimensional asset, like placing textures on faces or doing face warps, it will automatically change the scene into a 2D presentation of whatever you're working on. I think that pretty much covers this. We'll be working through the projects and getting more familiar with this. So if you don't understand what everything is right now, don't really worry about it. It'll come the more you use Lens Studio. So project 1 is going to be the countdown template, which is really a tutorial. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to have Lens Studio open. This is the home screen. You may not see some things here, but this is really what we're looking for. The step 1 will be to click help on the top left, and you just select start tutorial right here. And it's going to open a tutorial called countdown template, which will guide us through how to create our first lens. Sometimes it takes a minute to load a project. So once my project loads, I'll give you guys a little bit of time. I do believe this recording will be posted somewhere. So this project is extremely simple. It's just going to be a we're essentially making a countdown to our birthday with this party hat and these glasses. And once the preview is working, when we get to that point, we will see it on ourselves if we have webcams. If we don't have webcams, that's fine. They have previews built in. So our first step, what we're going to do is select the My Birthday controller object in the objects panel. Remember the top left one. And we're going to edit the properties of our birthday controller object. So I'll put my birthday in. Oops. Yeah, until my birthday. Change the colors. I like blue and purple. Oh, and that teal. It's a nice color. And later on, we'll get into how we use image assets to customize our lenses. But once we have our countdown set, doesn't have to be until your birthday, could be any other date. And our colors, we'll click next. And we'll add a face stretch. Adding a face stretch consists of going to the objects panel on the top left, pushing the blue, or not the blue, the plus mark to the left of the search bar, and adding the face stretch object. And the face stretch object automatically adds a object into our object panel that allows us to stretch our face. So first, my webcam was, there it is. So earlier you could have seen yourself in the webcam, changing the colors live. There it is, 48 days until my birthday, whenever you open your mouth. And you could do the face stretch. I'm not going to change anything on the face stretch because I don't really care to, but you can modify it as much as you want. Face stretches are probably one of my favorite things to mess with in Lens Studio. But for the sake of time, I will skip that step. So now it's going to ask to preview your lens on this preview panel on the far right. You can select to open your webcam if you have it available and select it. Boom, there it is. Open my mouth, and it's executing all of the scripts and the controllers to just have the text pop up, all those animations play behind me. Even just this color changing on the glasses is all a part of some scripts that Snapchat already wrote. So next it'll ask us to publish our lens. You don't have to do this, but for the sake of the tutorial, just click publish, but you don't have to do anything after that. It'll open a Chrome window for you. You can just exit out of it, no need to do it. But if you want to publish it, go right ahead, log into Snapchat, click submit, and then you'll, after it is approved, you'll be able to send that lens to anybody and use it anywhere. So I know I went through that kind of quickly. If you guys have any questions, please go ahead and ask in the chat. I'll see if I can go over this. No, I can't. But what we just learned was how to modify an object with the inspector, how to add an object like a face stretch into our objects panel, and how the preview works. And the next project will be doing something a little more advanced than that. Oh, like Rashmi just said in the chat, whenever you're finished on Track It, make sure you select the complete button at the bottom center of the page. It'll let us know when we're the majority of the people are ready to move on. Cool. We're ready to move on. So now we're going to push back to home. I'm not going to save the project, but you're welcome to. And this next project will require us to download assets. I created a link at the top of the Track It page, which I'll send in the Zoom right now. Click that. Open the page that it asked you to. There we go. Yeah. And we're going to download this project to cap prefab. I've already created a folder up here and downloaded the file. Give you guys a second to do that. So the next project we're doing is called segmentation. And segmentation is essentially like a green screen where it uses machine learning to figure out you're a person, and then it cuts out everything around you that isn't you. It may sound a little weird explaining it that way, but you'll see once we open the project. So if you're not already at the Lens Studio at home, push Control W or Command W if you're on a Mac to return to the home page of Lens Studio. And while we're on the home page, we're going to go to the search bar at the top for search for templates or recent projects. And we're just going to type in segmentation. and select the project at the bottom that is just segmentation, none of the other ones, just segmentation. So you can choose to still use your webcam. I think I might, instead of turning my video back on Zoom. But step 1 says we need to input our new project 2 cap prefab. A prefab is a prefabrication of objects and resources that we can just drag and drop into any project if it's constructed correctly. So what we're going to do is we're going to import this into our resources panel by dragging and dropping it like this. And once it's finished importing, we'll have a bottom. It's going to be a P for the icon. If you can always push the plus in resources and do plus from files, and it'll open the file browser for you to be able to just open the resource and import it that way. So now that we have our project cap imported correctly, we are going to give ourselves a baseball cap by dragging the project 2 cap prefab resource into the blue camera. It's the camera object with the blue dot on it. And if it imports correctly, this is what it should look like. Now I got a 3D hat on, and it has all of the pieces we need for it. We're going to expand the drop downs for the blue camera and then the project 2 cap prefab, and click the baseball cap controller. It says edit me. I skipped ahead one step, but once you're on the baseball cap controller, go ahead and hit ready on track it, and we'll move on to the next steps. You guys can still hear me okay, right? Cool, thanks. Just to run it by quickly again, we just imported our project 2 cap prefab with the from files, or by just dragging and dropping it into the resources panel. And then we dragged our project 2 cap prefab, the actual prefab itself, into the blue camera. And if you dragged it into the blue camera, it should automatically appear on your preview. And if you don't want to use your webcam as a preview, there's 3 buttons on the top left of the preview panel, and the preview panel is the big one on the far right. You click the small one on the left to change it to a preview that Snapchat has already put in the program. And you can change what the preview is by clicking this person. It'll be pair or person or body or something. It's just a drop down. It has a bunch of different previews you can use, like so. And there are video ones too. But because it's a workshop, I'll use my webcam. If you have a slow computer, I would recommend using the stills for your preview, because using the webcam is kind of resource intensive. You can also see, since we imported our cap prefab object, it's now inside of the 3D scene. But more on that later for the 3D scene. We're going to get to that. We're going to change the part icons in the background after we finish changing the hat. Moving on. So now, like I ended, we're going to select the baseball cap controller inside of our cap prefab that says edit me. Don't click the other one. We're not going to touch it. Just the baseball cap controller, edit me. So next thing we'll do is upload our own image, just the same way that you imported the prefab object, you can import your own images to the resource panel. I'm personally going to use the Jiffy integration to find some images and stuff to use here. And we're going to want an image to change the yay on this hat right here to something else. So to open the Jiffy integration, you click the plus in resources, and on the right of the search bar, there's a paper looking icon, which is, I believe, is Jiffy's logo. I'm going to go for something UTD related. Oh yeah, we're going to get some TMOC. So once you find the Jiffy that you want, you click the plus on the bottom right of it and click add as resource. We don't want to mess with face, screen, or world images right now, just add as resource. And to open the GIFs, you go plus in resources, and then this button on the top right of the drop down that appears. It looks like a piece of paper with a corner folded in. Cool. So a newer feature right now is that all assets get automatically compressed, and it actually works really well. Each lens has a 4 megabyte limit, and it's really small whenever you start, piling in all kinds of different things. So what it's doing right now is it's automatically optimizing it, bringing the size down. But once our resource is available, we can preview it in the resource panel on the bottom left just by clicking on it. And looks good to me. It's TMOC. It's going, yeah. So I'm going to change this yay to that TMOC in the resource panel. There's 2 ways to do it. It's pretty similar to how you would import anything into Lens Studio. I can take the resource, the let's go thumbs up sticker, and just drop it onto the logo texture. And there he is, animated and all. Or if I can't do that, I'll click the box where I want the image and just select it like so. This is like a mini resource panel. So now we're going to change the rest of the options in the baseball cap controller script. It's pretty similar to the birthday control or the countdown template. So TMOC looks a little small. I'm going to bump his size up. He's in the right spot, so I'm not going to change his locations. And I'm going to go for some UTD colors on the hat. Yeah. And you can even change the curve of the brim, which I don't even know you can do on a lot of hats. The swivel, I'm going to turn a little sideways because I'm cool like that. And give it a little tilt, because why not? Tilt it the other way. The face paint, I'm going to do the same colors. You can even copy a color and paste it where you need it. So I'll copy those 2. And you're not going to touch the face paint blend mode. That has to do with materials and things like that. And we just don't want to mess with it right now. And the face paint pattern, I'm going to go for swirl because that's what I like it. But we can try and look at the eye lines, the eye mask. That one's actually pretty cool too. The kitty and the swirl. I'm going to go for the swirl. And once you're done editing your baseball cap controller, we're going to move on to editing the segmentation controller. The segmentation controllers should be the last object in your objects panel. It controls all of these hearts in the background, the image, the color of the background that it's segmenting out. The first thing we'll do is change the color, give it a light green, change the alpha to make it less transparent. So we need another image. So I'm going to go again to Jiffy and go for another TMOC, hopefully. Which one are we using? I like this Comet one. So exactly how we did it in the baseball cap controller. You don't want to click it in the resource panel. You just want to drag and drop it. Because if you click it, it will change your inspector to inspect that resource instead of the segmentation controller like we want. Oh, don't put it there. That was the wrong spot to put it. You're going to put it instead of this heart. So I'll do it like so. And now we have the orange comets going by. I'm not going to change the transparency or the blend mode, but I will make it more dense in the tiles and make them scroll quicker. So you know it's comet. And something a little more advanced you can try on your own time is adding a post effect. You add post effects by going to the objects panel, hitting the plus, and just selecting a post effect out of these, and then replacing the post effect texture here, which once you add the post effect object, it will create the post effect resources for that post effect. But I will not mess with that right now. Just giving you some ideas if you want to switch it up. So now I'd consider this lens done. We changed the background, we changed the hat, changed all the colors. So now, excuse me, we're going to preview it on our phones. So here I have Snapchat open on my device. You're going to hit preview on the top right and then scan it like so. You scan with Lens Studio by just holding your finger on top of the snap code and hitting pair. So there's two of me. Once it pairs, the button will change to send lens to device right here. So we'll click send lens to device. Back to our phones. We'll wait here a second. And boom, it says your lens is ready to preview. We could tap either the banner that comes across on the top, or we push the smile face button on the right of the shutter and scroll to find our icon and our new lens. So here we can see how it looks on our phones. It's always important to do this step because sometimes Lens Studio, very rarely, the preview is just a little different than what's on your phone. So you always got to double check on your phone to make sure it's all looking right. And if we even wanted to make this lens better, I could, there's a newer Snapchat model, I think, maybe a machine learning model where it takes all of your hair away, makes you bald. So you can put a hat on top of yourself while you're bald and you won't have all this hair coming out outside of the 3D cap. That's just a little suggestion I thought of. So once we're happy with it on our phones, we're going to go to project info. Next to publish lens on the top left, we can change the name. So we can call this UTD segmentation. You could change the icon, give it a preview. Luckily, if you're using these templates, typically there's a preview you can use that already exists. And I don't think I'll use one right now just for the sake of time. And our hint will be find a face. So once this lens opens, it will say find a face real quick. And we'll click publish lens if we would like to submit it online. And again, once you push publish lens, it'll ask you to log into Snapchat. I'll do it just to show you guys how to submit a lens. Let me log in real quick. It'll bring us to, sometimes this happens. So it doesn't bring the project submission button up. So we have to click the My Lenses button again, which is in the pop-up right here. And this is what you'll see. We want to submit a community lens, submit a new lens. And we can give it some tags like UTD and college, stuff like that. Anything that you think would help make your lens pop up in a search, and we want it public, and then we'll just click submit, and that's it. So once it's out of review, you'll get an email saying that your lens has been approved and you can use it anywhere. It'll give you a link that you can share, or you can just search it up in the Snapchat app. You guys have any questions about this template? Anybody stuck anywhere? Need some help? Make sure you push that you have completed the steps on Track It whenever you're done. Moving on, we're going to close this project same way we did it earlier. We can push Control W, or we can click File, close to Home. I personally like to use Control W. And we're back on the home page. For this next project, we'll be using the marker technology built into Snapchat. First, we got to download the assets again. This time we're downloading a whole project. I just sent the link to the project 3 assets on the Zoom, and it's at the top of the page in Track It. And it should look like so. We will have a modified marker template, a comic card preview, and a comic card template. We'll get into why we have these 2 images just on their own once we start the project. But once you download the zip file, just extract it. Yeah, download the zip file called modified marker template. And once it's unzipped, you'll have a folder of a project. This is what a Lens Studio project looks like whenever it's saved on your disk. So once we have that downloaded, we're going to open Lens Studio again. And instead of using a Snapchat template, we're going to click Open Project on the left over here. And then we're going to navigate to our project, wherever we saved it or wherever we unzipped it. So once we find our project, modified marker template, open the folder and select the modified marker template.lsproj, which is Lens Studio project. Just got to wait a moment for the project to load. You should also download the if you're not using Snapchat to preview these, you are going to need this comic card preview image. So make sure you download this. You don't need the comic card template image. I just included that for if you want to tinker with it on your own. So the first thing we'll do is open the project. And once we open the project, we'll see these errors down here in the logger, which means there's something wrong with our lens and you can't submit a lens with errors. First thing we need to do is select the image marker Edit Me at the top left in the objects panel and set our tracking marker. Our tracking marker is the image, or really whatever, we're looking for to track off of. That's the words I'm looking for. And now Lens Studio could recognize the marker, but we also want to help the user figure out what the marker is. So we're going to go to the magnifying hint on the top left, it says Edit Me, and change the preview texture to the comic card template source image I've included. In this project, we're not importing any assets. I've already included them all in the resources panel, and they should be expanded like this. So you can still drag and drop the image that you need. So now we know we're looking for a comment card. And if you don't have a comment card on hand, but you have a friend who also has Snapchat, you can tap the icon in the middle and it'll make it larger so you could just track off of your friend's phone. To test we have the image marker set up correctly, we're going to take a comment card and put it in front of the screen to hopefully get that kind of pattern, the plus checkerboard pattern, to know that it's tracking this. So once you see that, that means it's tracking correctly and you can proceed. If you don't have a webcam to test this with, I included a preview image you can use. So what you're going to do is click the click the button on the top left in the preview, click the drop down in the center and add from files. And you're going to add the comment card preview image that I told you to download if you don't have a comment card. That's nice. Let me re-download it real quick. So, whoops. Hopefully this time we'll be able to find it. Guess not. It's weird. Well, essentially what you'll do, if it works for you, is you click the plus from files, then find this comment card preview image. I think it's because I already had it, but then I removed it, so maybe just a little bug. And once you add it, it'll be the first one up here that you can use as a preview. So you'll scroll to the top and it'll say comment card preview, and you just click on it, and this beach will change to the comment card image I already made. And it should track automatically. So you won't have this looking for image, it'll just track. Do you need me to repeat where to add that preview image? You just click in the preview panel, you click the multimedia preview button on the top left, the far left one between these 3 or 2 if you don't have a webcam, and click the drop down in the center. At the top, mine says beach because that's the preview I currently have selected. And at the bottom of that drop down, you'll click, you don't need to add it to any folder in the project. You're just importing this image to the preview. The preview has nothing to do with the project. Previews actually persist between projects. So once you finish this project, you can open a new one and that preview will still exist for you to use in the future. But you'll to add that preview image, click the drop down from files, and then you'll find the image and click open. Oh, it worked this time. So once you've added it, there will be a new tab called My Files, and you'll select the comment card preview, and it starts tracking. The marker tracking in a preview image that you created yourself is a little iffy because I believe the markers use some kind of some of your device's data, like the accelerometer and the gyroscope, to know which way's up, which way's down. And the identification is better just with the Snapchat app itself, not Lens Studio. So again, if you have your webcam, I'd say just have your comment card with you, test like that. If you don't, choose this the Lens Studio preview. While we're waiting, there's a little customization you can do in these templates. You just got to look for it. So the main text hint right here says look for image. You can change that to look for comment card. Push enter. There you go. Yeah, like Rashmi just said, make sure you hit complete at the bottom of track it to let us know you're ready to move on. So now this is where this will probably get a little tricky. The first thing we'll do is set our image marker to do something once we find the marker itself. So once this is found, we're going to want it to do something to the marker. And we'll do that by clicking the image marker edit me and using this door open effect in the marker prefabs in the resources panel and just dragging that into the image marker edit me object like so. So you hold click and drag it into the image marker up here. So this part is all automatic once it's imported correctly because it's a prefab. And we find our comic card, it's going to open up and create a little virtual space inside of our comic card. Like so. So every time it finds it, it's going to open the doors to whatever we want to put inside of there. The next step is going to get us a little more familiar with using the 3D scene inspector. We're going to use this TMOC head that my buddy created for UTD a long time ago. We're going to drag it into the image marker the same way we just did for the door open effect. And now we're going to see a TMOC in the middle of the screen. Using the 3D inspector is a little tricky if you've never used any kind of 3D software before, but it's pretty simple. Right click spins your camera like so, wherever you move your mouse while holding right click. Middle mouse button moves the camera itself, and the scroll wheel will zoom in and out. And that's all you really need. So first thing we want to do is we want to scroll in a little closer to our marker and our TMOC head. And then we can use our right click and our middle mouse to move around. Trackpad's a little tricky. I'm pretty sure if you're using a trackpad that supports the 2 fingers scroll up and scroll down, it will zoom in and out, or maybe try pinching. I'm not sure. It really varies on every laptop on how to use it. It's not that essential to do all of these movements. So really we could just put it back to where we started. And all we have to do is zoom in right now. There are 3 main tools. Oh, hold on. You can actually also, if you click TMOC head and you do zoom to selected, which is if you push F on your keyboard as a shortcut, it will zoom to the object that you want to look at, and then you can scroll in, scroll out. Makes finding objects in like a project with a lot of objects a lot easier. So the next step is to select the TMOC head object, just the prefab object itself in the objects panel. And we're going to use these 3 tools up here to move it into our virtual box from the door open effect. So right now, if we track it, it's just going to have this TMOC, right in front. We don't want that. That looks ugly. It's no good. We want it inside of the box and facing the wall. So what we'll do first is push the rotation tool key. It's the dot with the circle and the arrow, or you can push E on your keyboard and it'll automatically select it. And we're going to pull down on this red line vertically. You can hold right click and shift your view, then middle mouse button, get a little closer. And we're going to pull this red line down until it looks about level with the marker. The next thing we'll do is click on the scale tool. It's the box with the little box behind it, or R for the shortcut. And we're going to try and get that. Oh, thanks for coming. Try and get that little blue box in the center to scale down the root of this object. If we pull on the blue or the red or the green, it'll pull in those axes. So what we want to do, light blue box in the middle to get a uniform scale down. Doesn't have to be perfect, but we want them to be able to fit inside of this comic card that we have in our 3D scene. So I'll scale them down just a little bit more just in case. And then I'll use the move tool with W and hold on to this green line, which means we're going to move him along the y-axis into our comic card. Once he's on our comic card, we can double check the scale, see that he's fitting inside the box pretty well. So far, he's exactly where we just placed him in the 3D scene. So relative to this marker, which is the card I'm holding in my hand, that's where T-Mock is. So we can still see he's peeking his head out a little too much. We want the doors to open and have him inside. So we'll just pull him down using the blue arrow, which indicates the Z-axis. So now, whenever we track, we'll see T-Mock is inside the box. Does anybody have any questions? Because I know that was a lot of stuff I just did. Just before we move on right now, because we're about to get into some powerful but still kind of tricky stuff. Yeah, the Blender shortcuts are really weird, but the Lens Studio ones just let you use, I think it's Q, W, E, and R. That's basically all you have to know to shift between these up here, like so. It's just W, E, and R. So moving on, while we still have our T-Mock head selected over here in the objects panel, we're going to look at the inspector now. Next, we're going to add these things called tweens, and they're essentially just script-based animations, and it's pretty simple to use, I'd say. So we'll click Add Component in a script. This is just like a generic thing. We're not really adding a script yet. This is just the component to use the script we will add. We'll click Add Script, and we will search tween transform, or you just search tween and find transform. We're not using screen transform. Those are for like 2D objects on the screen. So like this image right here, this could be a screen transform because it would be in a 2D axis moving like that. We want a tween transform, which allows us to use the 3D tweens. Click it and then click OK. The first tween we're going to create is to move the T-Mock out of the box once we find him. So if you have Track It open, this part will be pretty easy. You're essentially just going to copy the settings that I've created over here. And for those of you that don't have Track It, I'll see if I can make my window a little smaller just so you can see it too. There we go. So we created our tween object. The tween name is pretty important. Every tween has to have a unique name. So we're going to call this one move because he's just going to move on the Z-axis just straight up out of the box. We're going to disable playing automatically. It's not going to loop. The tween type will be to move. We're going to use an offset movement type. So if we used from and to, it would literally move from 0, 0, 0 in the 3D space to whatever we want it to. But right now in the transform box, you can see it's not at 0, 0, 0. So if we ran this tween, it would move it to 0, 0, 0 and then move it to wherever we want it to. We just want to move it up. So we're going to do an offset movement, which will be for 15 units in the Z. So it's X, Y, and Z. And the third box, we're going to put 15. You can test this by turning on play automatically and finding it, but this is a little difficult to do. You can see whenever I reset the lens, it plays. But what we want to happen is once the tracker is found, it will play it instead of playing it once the lens starts. So make sure you disable play automatically or it will screw everything up. We want to enable additive, give it a 1 second delay. So this tween will run after a second of the tween being ran, which means we're essentially just giving time for the doors to open before it moves up. And the time box itself is how long the tween will take to move 15 units. So we're going to take 1.5 seconds to move all 15 units. The easing function is it's like how you want the tween to move. There's a lot of options here, and we're just going to stick with the quadratic easing function and the ease type of out. So it will start moving pretty quickly, and then it'll slow down once it reaches the 15. So once we have the move tween done, we are going to add another script, do the exact same tween transform. It's important to note that the scripts in the resources panel, where we're getting these scripts from, we're not like running that script. We're kind of making a copy of it and then using that copy in each script component. So this tween won't like mess or overlay with the move tween. It'll run with it at the same time. This one we're going to call rotate. We're going to make the TMOC head just spin forever and ever and ever. This one we could play automatically, but just for the sake of later on in this tutorial teaching how to use some advanced tween objects, we're going to disable it again. We're going to loop this time, because how this tween will work is by changing the type to rotate. We're going to do offset again and do 180 degrees in the y-axis. So X, Y, and Z, the middle box, 180, and additive. And essentially that means every time the tween completes, it's going to spin again. It's going to add another 180 on the y-axis. So it'll just continue spinning forever and ever. And you can see the easing function right here. So you see it goes very quickly and then it slows down at the end. We want to change the easing function to linear. So now it's just a static spin. We want the spin to go a little slower. We want to take 3 seconds to go 180 degrees. And I believe that's all we have to change in this tween transform. Going to add another script component. This will be our final tween transform. And this one is going to scale up the TMOC. So our first tween is moving him up. Our second tween is going to spin him at the same time. And this third tween is going to make him grow while he's coming out of the box and spinning. So we're going to call this one scale. Make sure you remember the names that you name your tweens. Those are important later. And we want to disable play automatically. No loop type, just scale. Set the type to scale. The movement type, again, an offset. We just want it to grow. We don't really care about changing the specifics. We can look at our scale up here. We can see it's 0.03 on every axis. So we're going to grow it double the size. So we're going to add 0.03. Oops. 0.03 to every axis. And this essentially means that 0.03 will be 0.06 at the end after we add our new scale offset. We want it to take 2 seconds to grow, and like the movement function at the beginning, or the movement tween at the beginning, we're going to give it a second delay so it doesn't outgrow the doors. And the easing function is fine. Make sure you have play automatically disabled on all of them just one more time. And once you're done with that, click image marker, edit me. Once you're here, we're going to add a script component and add a script called a tween chain. And a tween chain essentially allows you to run a bunch of tweens at once or run tweens sequentially, depending on how you set it up. This tween chain is going to be called tmock, and all of our tweens we just made are going to go into this. Disable play automatically again. Select the tmock head object out of the left. You can drag and drop it like we did with the images. Simply just drag the object into the scene object box like that, or you can find it using the navigator, like so. And what that essentially does is we're telling this tween chain, this is where all of our tweens are located that we want you to run. And we're going to add 3 value boxes. Our first tween was called move. Our second tween was called rotate, I think. And our third tween was called scale. And we're going to run them all at once. We don't need recursive on because we're not going to keep running them, I think. And once that's done, we're going to add our final trick up our sleeve. We're going to add a new object called a behavior. And what you'll do is you'll click this plus on the top left in the objects box, type behavior. Inside of this helper scripts object, there will be a box called behavior, and you just click it, wait a minute, and it'll give you a behavior script object. So we will use a trigger on this behavior. Oh, sorry. Behavior scripts are basically like modular ways you can trigger tweens and basically anything. Tweens and behavior scripts are all compatible with you writing your own scripts. So you can interact with this stuff whenever you create your own scripts and try and explore stuff. So the trigger for this behavior is going to be a marker tracking event. Once our marker is found, and we have to set our marker that we want to be found, same way, you can drag and drop it from the objects panel or find it in the navigator. We're going to have our trigger, marker tracking event, our event type, marker found, our marker tracking set to our image marker of the comic card. And we're just always going to allow, and the delay time will be 0. So once this is triggered, it's going to give a response, and our response is going to be run tween. Our target object is going to be our object which contains all of our tween chains, which is the image marker edit me object. So we can drag and drop it in like so, or we can find it in the navigator. And if you remember, our tween chain is called tmock. So what this behavior script does is once our marker is found, so once the comic card is visible on screen, it will run our tmock tween, our tmock tween chain. And that tmock tween chain is going to run all 3 of those tweens we created to raise tmock up, scale him up, and spin him. So now if we did everything right, it's going to work. So moment of truth, he's spinning, he's coming up, and he grew. And I believe that is all I have to show you. I'll test it on my device. Let me open this thing. So like we did before, pair it if you haven't already, and then you click send lens to device. It's sending lens, sending lens. It will say complete here, lens sent, and then now my phone says there's a lens ready to preview. So I'll hit that smile face, find our lens we just created, and use the marker tracking. Sorry, sometimes it's dependent on lighting to get a good tracking. And that's just how tweens work sometimes. So we'll find it, opens, scales up, grows, there we go. That's really it on this project. So I know I just unloaded all of this knowledge onto you of how to use Lens Studio, and I really have to say these tweens and behavior scripts, I use them in almost every project. I do a lot of work between just That's what I'm looking for. My personal projects or client work and tweens and behavior scripts are the most important things to know. Just creating a good AR experience. And I believe that's it. If you guys have any questions, oh, I know I ran over time about 10 minutes, but that's all. You can publish this lens, change the name. I will also add a zip file of the finished project to the Google Drive. Just so you couldn't figure it out or you didn't understand it. You can look at this finished project, open it in Lens Studio like we did earlier, and you can dig through it just to see how it's done. If that is all, oh, I think I had a slide for this. So we did project 1, countdown template, learn the basics. Project 2, segmentation, learned how to import assets and create assets and modify stuff in the inspector. And in the third one, we brought it all together and used a marker using our comic cards. Thanks for coming to my workshop. Those of you who participated, thank you so much. Thanks Snapchat, thanks ACM for allowing me to do this. Special thanks to Tony Wild for creating the TMOC head asset and Models by Mike and Spinning Rock for their previews. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. And I think that's it. Thanks, everyone.